What happens at a support conference? Hi, I'm Alicia Kinchlow, the owner of Kinchlow Law, a family law practice based out of Philadelphia area. Now, when someone files a complaint for support or a modification of support, the first step generally is to go to a support conference. And sometimes people don't understand what's going to happen, so I'm going to kind of run down what to expect at your first support conference. All right. Now, you should understand that different counties in Pennsylvania can actually hold their support conferences in different ways. And especially given that we are still in a pandemic and it's affecting different counties differently, some of the counties have their own rules. Some people are actually bringing people into court for their conferences. A lot of counties are still doing them by telephone. Some of them are also doing them by video teleconferencing. So you should understand that things can be handled differently. Now, when you file a complaint for support, you can file it through the state or you can file it through your local county's office. And so it really depends on the way that it starts out. But it will get scheduled through the domestic relations office and they will have information there for how you need to appear. So you want to make sure that you read the notice carefully and that you understand what your responsibilities are. Sometimes some counties will tell you that you're required to submit your evidence a certain amount of time prior to your hearing. And if you don't do so, if it's your filing, your case can be dismissed. Or if you don't do it, there could be other repercussions. So you want to make sure that you follow the guidelines provided in your support conference paperwork so that it goes smoothly. Now, again, in there, they're going to tell you how to submit it and whether or not you need to exchange it with the other party. So let me give you an example of how it's done differently in two different counties that our office frequents. So in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, the support conferences are done by actually having the parties go to the office, and the information is taken, the guidelines are run, and it's done sometimes in almost a public forum. So you need to understand that that might actually happen. In Philadelphia County, when things were done in person, everyone would go to the particular floor. They would wait in the waiting area. They would get called over to fill out their information. They will turn it in, and then the conference officer would take them to another room where they will either try to reach an agreement or the conference officer will run the guidelines. It's important to understand that the authority of the conference officer is actually limited. So certain things that can be decided, like whether or not a person is underworking or under earning, or whether or not they were terminated for cause, those are things that cannot be decided by a conference officer. So it has to be decided by a master. So it's very important for you to understand that there are some limitations, and if there are things that you want to be able to argue or discuss, that you have to potentially ask for a master's level hearing. Now, the conference officer will generally take your information and the other person's information and run the support guidelines. There are certain things that they will take into consideration at that time, like who's paying insurance, if there's daycare, and then certain types of tuition might be included in there. But the first thing they're going to do, which I should have taken a step back and discussed, is they're going to make sure that there's actually an acknowledgement of paternity. Is the father's name on the birth certificate? Will they be willing to sign an acknowledgement of paternity right there? Or do you need DNA testing? If it's same sex parents, same thing. Are both parents' name on the birth certificate? Has there been an adoption? Or does there need to be some other acknowledgement done? So though that's the very first step, because if that is the case and there is some challenge to paternity, everything will stop right then and the court will decide whether or not to order DNA testing. But let's assume that both parents have been established as the biological or legal parents of the child or children in question. Once the conference officer has taken the income information from both parties and considered some of the additional information that's there, the court will then have a idea of what the guidelines say that the support amount should be. If both parties agree with the support amount or don't have significant challenges to it, then generally what will happen is that that will be the order for support. Now, this may be if the parties do disagree and they want a master's hearing to be able to answer some of those questions that I talked about before, there may be an interim order entered for support. You want to read the rules for where your case is and understand what's supposed to happen. Now, certain challenges will mean that certain information will not be included. For example, if you dispute the tuition costs, or if there's no proof of daycare and one person is disputing the child is even in daycare, Those may be things that may not go into it or may prevent an interim order from going into place. Now, some offices, again, this is why your local rules are important, or understanding how things happen in your county. Some counties like Delaware County may hold the master's hearing right then. So if you need more time, you need to ask for it in an appropriate amount of time before your support conference, so that your master's hearing is not immediately following your support conference. In other counties, you're giving another date, and then you'll have information about when you're going to come and then what you need to present prior to that date. So again, it can be very important because sometimes people don't realize it. It's not a lot of time between getting the notice for the support conference and having to appear. And then if you don't realize that you may want to hire an attorney and you're in a county where the master's hearing happens right away, or it may happen within 10 days, you may not have enough time to hire or afford an attorney to represent you at your master's hearing. And that is very important because in another video, I'm going to talk about a little bit more what happens at the master's hearing. But your master's hearing is the last step where you're able to submit evidence and argument. And so if you forfeit those things, you may not be able to bring those things up in a later proceeding or at another time. So the timing of all of this is important. I generally tell people that you may not need an attorney to handle your support conference, but you should always actually get a consultation with an attorney to understand what it is that you may not be seeing. I hope this sheds some light on support conferences and how they're generally handled in Pennsylvania, but most importantly, I hope it underscored the fact that things are handled differently in different counties, and that you should always speak with an attorney licensed in your state, familiar with the rules in your local county about the facts specific to your case. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the little notification bell so that anytime we drop a new video, you get a notification and you won't miss anything. And we're doing a video every single day of 2021 on custody, divorce, and support. All right, until next time, take care.